Listen, all you gals and boys, I'm just from Tuckahoe. I'm going to sing a little song. My name's Jim Crow. Wheel about and turn about and do just so. Every time I wheel about, I jump Jim.
Giving all praise to the Most High through Hamashiach. And just wanted to touch base on just wanted to go ahead and touch base on a very popular topic here as I make this video. When it's uploaded, it's going to be Election Day 2020 here in the United States, aka Babylon. And I just want to take it back to 1994. 1994, there was a movie that was released, and it's actually one of my favorite movies of all time. It was called The Shawshank Redemption. All right, starring Tim Robbins, Bob Gunton, Morgan Freeman, Clancy Brown. Yeah. And this movie took place, the time setting was, I believe, the early to mid 40s. Right, I forget the exact year that the time of the setting of the movie. But it gave a depiction of prison life during that time frame in the early 40s. And Morgan Freeman's character, Ellis Boyd Redding, they call him Red in the movie, he was like one of few so-called black men in prison. He was like just a handful, a sprinkle of black people in that particular prison. And especially in the northern states, that is pretty accurate. That's how it was. There wasn't a lot of us in prison. We had the highest rate of marriage. We during those time periods, we married, we settled, we had families, we built businesses, we worked, and we kept our noses clean and kept to ourselves. Right. That was also the time of segregation. Okay. Now we fast forward to, let's say, the mid to late 70s, and we see heroin, and we see smack or heroin really running rampant through our communities. Okay. And then we have the early 80s, right at the end of the 70s during the disco age, and right into the early 80s, we have cocaine making its way through Miami, right, all the way up into the northeastern region of the U.S., and then, making its way out west, of course. And, everyone's probably seen the movie Blow, starring Johnny Depp, and, and his depiction of Boston George and, the people he worked with, the Medellin cartel, to bring cocaine all over to the United States, especially across to the West Coast. Our community started being ravaged by what was called crack, thereafter cocaine. It was cheaper to go ahead and turn cocaine, mix it and stretch it and bottle up and sell it as crack as opposed to cocaine. And so it was a way for the dregs of our community, the lower level men of our community, to make a dollar, to make a profit off of pushing that poison through our community. But I still had to say this, is that the prison population had a mass transformation during the 70s and 80s and 90s, of course. And whereas in the 40s we were just a sprinkle of prisoners, we started making up the majority. We, being so-called blacks, started making up the majority of the prison population during those times. Well, for 47 years, you had men like Jim Crow Joe Biden helping to push that agenda to lock up black men, right? I'm just going to go ahead and read a couple of quotes from Joe Biden, and you can actually look this up. These are transcripts I'm going to be reading from the New York Times, and these are his actual quotes from the Senate floor. For those of you who don't know, I'm sure you probably do at this point, Joe Biden is a presidential candidate for the Democratic Party, and he's been a United States Senator for 47 years. So he's made a lifelong commitment to be a quote unquote public servant and work in the Senate. And for 8 years, he was, of course, vice president of the United States in the Obama administration. But let's just take a look at his record here and a couple of his quotes here. Here's one here. The truth, this is, and I quote, this is from Joe Biden from the Senate floor. The truth is, every major crime bill since 1976 that's come out of this Congress has had the name of the Democratic senator from the state of Delaware, Joe Biden, on that bill. Right? That's him. So he's saying, hey, ever since 76, ever since I got into office, I have been a part of these crime bills. I am all about quote unquote law and order, but the law and order that he's about is not law and order that's equitable across the board for all people, is namely against you so-called blacks, you Jakes, right? Here's another quote from Jim Crow Joe. Not enough prosecutors to convict them, talking about you, right? You thugs. Not enough prosecutors to convict them, not enough judges to sentence them, and not enough prison cells to put them away for a long time. All right. So just a little history lesson. In 1984, that was the first introduction to what's called mandatory minimums. In 1986, the Anti-Drug Abuse Act started creating harsher sentences for, as I mentioned earlier, for crack rather than for powdered cocaine. Okay. And that was the catalyst to what took place in the 90s when Bill Clinton was elected president, the infamous 94 crime bill. Okay. And the 94 crime bill just exacerbated the mandatory minimums that were introduced in the 80s. And it introduced 3 strikes, you're out. So, hey, you get convicted of a felony, you commit the same type of felony, you get double the time that you got for that first felony. And if you commit another felony in like manner, then you go to prison for life, right? Jim Crow Joe, still at least vocally, in 2016, he was interviewed and, he said he wasn't ashamed of that bill. He said it did a lot of good. So this is the man who's vying for the support and the votes of the American people, namely you so-called blacks, because you've whored yourselves out to the Democratic Party for years and years and years, and they don't have to give you anything at all. At least a whore gets paid, right? But my people have been worse than whores. Like, you don't even get paid. You didn't get anything for your votes, for your support of the Democratic Party, right? And again, I have to keep saying this, and I'm explaining this a little bit further in depth, probably with a sit down, most high willing. But again, I'm apolitical, right? But I can see that the Democratic Party has been used to afflict my people more so than the right, right? So of course I'm gonna ride harder on that group of people that's riding down hard on my people, even though my people don't see it. Okay. Some of us are waking up though, right? So if you believe in the electoral process and all that, okay, do you? But you should not be voting for the Democratic Party. Again, you're voting against your own interests, right? So just a few quotes from Jim Crow Joe, and hey, that 94 crime bill, our people are still feeling the effects of that even to this day. There's brothers who have been locked up, and it didn't stop in the 90s. I mean, it spilled over into the 2000s as well, where judges, because of that bill, they had to give a minimum sentence, right? So, hey, the judge likes you. It's your first time messing up, right? You could easily change your life and go a different direction, but because of that bill, that judge has to give you a mandatory 15-year sentence, a mandatory 20-year sentence, so on and so forth, right? And of course, that disproportionately affected our people, broke up households, men locked up in prison for decades, missing their lives, for youthful mistakes. Okay, I'm all about accountability for our people. I'm all about us taking action and having accountability. But these type of people like Jim Crow Joe, they further the affliction, right, when it had it in, like scripture says. Okay. So, for those of you that are going to be going to the polls, that's your choice, your business. But just keep this in mind when you're headed out there, that a leopard doesn't change his spots, right? This is the same person who fought against school busing, to give little black boys and girls another opportunity for basically school of choice. Okay, in the inner cities. Okay, so a lot of dirt on this guy, right? And that whole Hunter Biden and the Ukraine and the CCP, or the Chinese Communist Party, and those dealings and all the pay for play they got going on there, that's a whole nother video that, for a whole nother day. If I tackle that one, it won't be in this video, but that rabbit hole runs really deep. We're keeping it really surface right here. All right. Just want to bring some awareness to this. And of course, can't leave without a few scriptures here. So I'm gonna go to Isaiah chapter 42, some oldie but goodies, Isaiah 42 and 22. But this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none delivereth, for a spoil, and none saith restore. So again, this took place. This prophecy is fulfilled. Our people packed the prisons even to this day, right? And definitely had high heights of our people in prison after the implementation of these crime bills in the late 80s and early 90s, most notably that 94 crime bill, right? That one really affected us and really brought this curse that's on the nation of Israel into fruition and made it plain for us to see. Okay. So, we're seeing how our punishment laid out, and we're seeing how it matches up with the scriptures, and we know that we're the people of the book. And now it's just time for us to turn back to the Most High, keep his laws, statutes, and commandments to the best of our ability, adopt a ruling class mentality. Think of yourselves, so-called black men, as kings and rulers, disciplining and ruling yourself first, then your household, and being a blessing and a help to your community, help guiding that community of yours, right? Let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 5. Ecclesiastes 5 and 8. If thou seest the oppression of the poor, and violent perverting of judgment, and justice in a province, marvel not at that matter. For he that is higher than the highest regardeth, and there be higher than they. Okay. So, hey, we see oppression of the poor, and we see violent perverting of judgment. This was violent perverting of judgment, the 94 crime bill. You sold crack rock, so you get 25 years. He sold cocaine, he gets 5 years and then 2 years of probation. All right. Or parole. He's done. Okay. Meanwhile, you're doing a quarter century for crack rock. A little small ball of crack rock. Right. A little 5 bag, a little nickel bag of crack rock. 25 years. Right. But the other nation, hey. The heathen, what? 5 years. Okay. That's perverting of judgment. Right. For he that is higher, it said, marvel not at that matter. For he that is higher than the highest regardeth. So the angels that's watching and taking note, they see it. And there be higher than they. Well, the Most High is higher than the angels. Right? He's the one that's going to make judgment. That's why, hey, there's going to be a harsh judgment coming down. Okay? And it's not going to affect the elect, though, the hopeful elect, those who are keeping the commandments to the best of their ability. Okay? But those that afflicted you, that judgment is coming for them. Let's go to the book of Sirach, or Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, chapter 10, verse 8. Because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, The kingdom is translated from one people to another, right? Because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. You know, Jim Crow Joe had to have a part in the prison industrial complex. There's no way he didn't. He was just too adamant about locking brothers the hell up. So that means he was part of it. Right, I touched on that a little bit when I did the video on Kamala, Whore of Babylon. They're a part of it. They got to keep that pipeline full of fresh prisoners to keep working, to keep on providing that free labor in those prisons. He's probably got stock in private prisons. Okay, why else would he be so adamant about pushing it? I mean, they've made their money off of private prisons and the affliction of our people and us being locked up. Okay, so it's just time for us to wake up and just know the game, see the game for what it is, right? And avoid these pitfalls. You brothers, avoid prison. Don't go there, man. It's not cool, right? There's too many different ways out here to make money. You ain't got to sell dope no more or do anything illegal. There's too many other opportunities out here to make money legally for your family, and you stay out here in these streets, okay? And we got to be weary of people like Jim Crow Joe that come smiling in our faces. All right. Stop whoring yourselves out. You're worth more than gold, Israel. Okay. You're precious in the eyesight of the Most High. Okay. Let's evaluate ourselves and let's elevate ourselves. And with that, I hope this has been edifying. Peace and blessing. Shalom.